Okay, we have a slightly different flow to the trademarked, remember, and soon to be world-renowned data over drama real estate market update. First, we're going to get some hot off the presses real estate news on a national level. Then I want to zoom in and just discuss what that is doing to the Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and High Point market in real time, how that news is affecting in real time, literally like in the last 7 to 10 days from recording this, so you can get a really good idea of what's going on right now. To do that, we're going to take a look at 3 transactions that I have going personally, boots on the ground right now in this market in Winston-Salem and Greensboro area. I'll talk about those. And then after that, we'll go ahead and review the January numbers so you can get an overall sense on the direction of the market. And if you stick around to the end to see how those January numbers look compared to what I'm going to tell you right now for the last 7 to 10 days, I think you're going to see some interesting trends as we move through this winter market more towards spring. I'm Jeff Valentino. I love helping people buy and sell real estate. If you need help, my contact information is below. So on the national news front, we've had quite a few interesting things happen in the last about 2 weeks or so in the real estate market. First one is, and probably the one that's going to affect your pocketbook the most, is mortgage rates are at a 4-month low. They finally stabilized a little bit. Now they started to come down. Projections say that they're going to kind of meander down a little bit throughout the rest of the year. Now that might be they pop back up for a little while and then come down. It's not going to necessarily be a linear thing, but we did see them hit a 4-month low. As you might expect, with news from that, mortgage applications on a nationwide level jumped over 25% in just the last 7 to 10 days. And the last thing I want to talk about on a national level is builder confidence. We've talked about this quite a few times, especially when the Fed was raising rates really, really high, what that was doing to it. Well, builder confidence actually rose for the first time in over a year. This is a big deal, even though the Triad doesn't have a ton of new construction like some other areas like Orlando and parts of Texas and things like that. We don't have quite as much new construction as that, but that is still important to understand overall sentiment on the market. So that rising for the first time in a year is kind of a big deal. So given all these 3 pieces, when you just take those 3 pieces, what do you think that's going to mean for the spring market, nationally, but also locally here, Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and High Point? It's pointing to me like it's going to be a pretty busy spring market. And actually what I've seen in the last 2 weeks is a big uptick in buyer activity. And I mean a surprising big uptick. Like I was like, wow. There was a lot of activity that just jumped in the market. That just says how kind of pent up demand was, and people were just kind of waiting for what they thought was a good time, and they really came back in the market these last couple weeks. Now, I've talked to about a dozen or so colleagues from all over across the country, big markets, small markets, medium-sized markets. They're all telling me similar things. They saw a giant uptick in buyer activity over the last couple weeks. So that is pointing to a busy spring market as well, maybe even an early spring market. Now, however, here's the asterisk, the potential fly in the ointment, whatever expression that you want to use right now with what's going on. You see, my buddy Jerome Powell, he's listening. He's lurking around here somewhere. And if he thinks that this is moving too fast, he's going to take actions which are big rate increases again, right? That's what the Fed has been doing. So if he thinks this is too much, too fast, he's liable to start raising rates at those really big chunks again to try to slow things down. But they have backed off of those large rate increases. Actually, yesterday they just did a really small increase. And in this article, Jerome Powell said, expect these smaller rate increases to continue. I think that's a good sign that the inflation is stabilizing and coming down. The economy is starting to recover. But we'll see, because there always is that chance that, if it goes too fast, too quick, that they don't like that those rates could come back up. But right now they're saying, be used to these smaller increases over the coming months. All right, now let's zoom way into Winston-Salem, Greensboro markets. So again, I just want to give you some really current, up-to-date news on what's happening in the market right now so you can make a good decision. The first one is really interesting. This is a new listing that I have in Winston-Salem. And this client, we have been talking off and on throughout the winter. They're talking about the best time to sell their house. We kind of agreed on like spring, when a lot of buyers come back and things like that, would probably be the best for a seller, as I've been saying in the previous market updates. However, when I saw all this activity in that last week, we hopped on the phone, said, hey, here's what I'm seeing in the market. We're seeing a ton of buyers come in. You can maybe get your house on the market right now before a lot of the other sellers come on in the springtime and take advantage of all this buyer activity that we're seeing. They were in a position where they could move quick. We got the house ready, had some amazing photography and video done. We got the house on the market, priced just under $300,000. We had multiple offers the first weekend. Sellers are excited. Next one. This is in Oak Ridge, highly desirable area, suburb of Greensboro. Really, really nice house, priced in the $600,000 range, so approaching that more luxury price point. And when I say surprised, this is when I was surprised at. I was representing the buyer in this one. I saw on there they had a ton of showings scheduled on this thing for the first weekend. The house was nice. It was priced correctly. I knew it was going to get some action. They had multiple offers. We made a strong offer. This was all in the first couple days. That first weekend it was on the market. We made a strong offer. Unfortunately, we missed. Moral of the story in that one is there was, right house, right price, lots and lots of activity, multiple offers. I'm sure it probably went over asking with some great terms, you know what I mean? Things like that. Just an interesting case, what I did not expect, because this was right at the beginning or in the middle area when we were seeing a lot of this activity just pick up. Third one is another house in Oak Ridge, suburb of Greensboro again. This one is priced under $400,000. The home needed some TLC, but Oak Ridge is a highly desirable area. My clients really like the area, like the house. We acted fast, and that first weekend we got a strong offer in. Again, this was priced under $400,000. They had quite a few showings scheduled. We got a strong offer in right away. That one's under contract. Buyers are happy and looking forward to getting to the closing table with that one. So that's 3 separate transactions, all what's going on in the last 7 or 10 days in this market in real time. And speaking of the last 7 days, let's take a look at this market snapshot. This tells a really interesting story here. You're going to see new listings at 274 at the time I'm recording this. Remember, this is for the previous 7 days, and properties going under due diligence or under contract, 277. We haven't seen the due diligence number outpace the new listings number in quite a long time. This just shows, again, how much demand there was and how much activity really ramped up in that last 7 days. Now, this market snapshot, these 3 things transactions that I just talked about, these all point to the same thing. This points to an early spring market in the triad for Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and High Point. It also points to a busy spring market in those same areas. Actually, Triad Business Journal, they just published an article basically saying the same thing. All the buyers have come back. Many people think that the best time to buy is kind of behind us right now. We'll see how that plays out, but everything is pointing to an early spring market. All right, so let's take a look at the January numbers, the ones that just finished. And the reason why it's so important to take a look at these last week or 2 that I just talked about, if you just took these January numbers on their own, you might get a totally different picture of what's going on in the market versus what is really happening right now. So that's why it was important for me to just give you a little context and bring you up to speed with something really, really current. But now let's take a look back at the January numbers so you can kind of see where those trends have been going if you've been following that along. So the overall numbers and total sales, those were down, as you can see. Many people have predicted far fewer sales in 2023 versus 2022. So unless you're a newer realtor or something like that, this is not a really big surprise to you. There's just going to be fewer sales overall, it seems, in 2023. Now, an interesting one is the average sales price. This took a pretty significant dip to $276,000. Now, what I want you to remember about this is, remember, this is looking back on all closed sales in January. So these are people that locked in those rates when they were almost at the highest, if you look back a few months prior to that, right? So they locked in at high 6s, 7s, and things like that. So what did they have to do? They had to adjust. Those people had to buy a smaller house, or a house that needed a little bit more TLC, or that was not quite move-in ready, or out a little bit further from town from where they wanted to be, where you can get more kind of bang for the buck. So that's kind of what was pointing to this lower sales number. Remember, we've always seen the list to sales price ratio has maintained through a lot of this. So this is mostly just people buying smaller or less move-in ready homes. I'm kind of expecting this number to pop back up next month given the activity we just talked about as we look back at the February numbers, but let's see. Now onto the supply numbers. We hit our yearly low in December for new listings. If you look back on the chart, every one of these lows each year is always in December. So that number has bounced back up in January. And if you've been looking, you're like, there's nothing on the market, there's nothing on the market. I understand. We should start to see more listings as we come out of winter and head into spring. Probably after the Super Bowl, we'll start to see more listings come on the market. So don't panic. We still don't have enough of what we need, but more houses should be coming. Now, just because more houses should be coming, let's keep things in context, right? We're still only about half of the supply we need for a balanced market. For example, all of Forsyth County, not just Winston-Salem, but all of Forsyth County, at the time I'm recording this, only 489 houses for sale. I mean, we really need to have, for a more balanced market, Forsyth County should have about 1,000 homes for sale at any given time. So again, about half of what we really need for balance. So summing up the supply side, supply is increasing slightly, but still not where we need. It's not to where we're going to see significant price drops. If you're waiting for that, I've been saying this for over a year now, you're going to have to keep waiting for quite a while, unfortunately, it seems. All right, onto the demand numbers. There's some interesting stats in here. First thing we'll take a look at is the days on market. This has continued to go up. It actually hit 19 days. Remember we had that stretch where it was still within that same 2 or 3 days for months and months, about a year? Well, now we've seen that go steadily up. And remember, what did that coincide with? If you look back over the months, that coincided with the big rate increases. So it's not totally, it's not a total surprise that that happened. That's kind of what that was supposed to do. We have seen that increase. It's going to be interesting again next month to see if that number comes back down or if it continues to go up or stays the same. It kind of seems like it should come back down given what I've seen the last couple of weeks, if that holds out. All right, percent of list price. We have finally dipped below 100% list to sales price ratio for the first time since July of 2020. This was big. I mean, let's take it as for what it is. It was at 99.6%.
Oh, yes, I remember now. Missed it by that much.
So not even a 0.5% drop on there, but just to see that happen was pretty surprising. Everything is pointing January was a decent time to buy. But wrapping that up, the supply demand overall, we're seeing an interesting time right now as we transition from a winter market to a spring market, and also remember, just a stabilizing market in general. All of these things, all the things we just discussed, are all pointing to the spring market coming in quicker than normal. So, look for that, like I said, probably after the Super Bowl. But it seems like kind of the spring market is here in February this year. So if you're thinking about buying or selling, I'd love to be a resource for you. You can reach out to me directly at jeff@govalentino.com. Thanks.